Imagine going to sleep on a quiet Saturday night, secure in the belief that the oceans on either side of your country make you invincible. Then, you wake up on Sunday morning to a world completely on fire. For the United States, World War II didn't begin in the trenches of Poland in 1939, or the skies over London in 1940. It began at 7:48 a.m. on December 7, 1941. In less than 2 hours, a surprise attack by the Imperial Japanese Navy at Pearl Harbor crippled the U.S. Pacific Fleet. Over 2,400 Americans were killed. Before that morning, America was a nation deeply divided. Millions of citizens wanted nothing to do with another European bloodbath. They were isolationists. But as the smoke billowed from the USS Arizona, that debate ended instantly. President Franklin D. Roosevelt called it a date which will live in infamy. And he was right. Because in those chaotic hours, the Japanese Empire didn't just sink battleships, they woke a sleeping giant. And the world would never be the same. To understand the American perspective of World War II, you have to understand one crucial fact. America was fundamentally unprepared for a global war. In 1939, the U.S. Army was smaller than the Army of Portugal, but America had something no one else had: unmatched industrial potential. Even before officially entering the war, Roosevelt had pledged to make the U.S. the arsenal of democracy. Through the Lend-Lease program, billions of dollars in weapons, food, and supplies were shipped to Great Britain, the Soviet Union, and China. But after Pearl Harbor, the entire American economy flipped a switch. Car factories stopped making Fords and Chevrolets and started pumping out Sherman tanks and B-24 bombers. Toy companies started making compasses. Typewriter companies made machine guns. It was a logistical miracle. By 1944, the United States was producing more aircraft in a single year than Germany and Japan combined produced throughout the entire war. Unlike Britain or the Soviet Union, the United States faced a unique and terrifying strategic nightmare, fighting a massive two-front war across two entirely different oceans. In the Pacific theater, it was a war of terrifying distances and unimaginable brutality. The U.S. strategy was called island hopping. It meant taking back the Pacific, one bloody volcanic rock at a time. Battles like Midway, Guadalcanal, and Iwo Jima weren't just fought against a fiercely determined Japanese military. They were fought against malaria, scorching heat, and starvation. The Japanese soldier fought by the Bushido Code. Surrender was a profound disgrace. This made the Pacific War merciless. Meanwhile, in the European theater, America had to cross the Atlantic Ocean, dodging deadly German U-boats, to take the fight to Hitler. They started in North Africa, pushed up through the treacherous mountains of Italy, and prepared for the ultimate gamble, liberating Western Europe. Back home, society was transforming overnight. With millions of men shipped off to fight, women stepped into the factories, the shipyards, and the ammunition plants. The iconic image of Rosie the Riveter wasn't just propaganda. It was a reality that forever changed the role of women in the American workforce. Everyone sacrificed. Sugar, meat, gasoline, and even rubber were strictly rationed. Kids collected scrap metal in the streets. But the American home front also had a dark, shameful shadow. Fueled by wartime paranoia and racism after Pearl Harbor, the U.S. government forced over 120,000 Japanese Americans, most of whom were born in the U.S. and were legal citizens, into internment camps. They lost their homes, their businesses, and their freedom. It remains one of the most controversial and tragic decisions in American civil rights history, proving that the fight for freedom abroad was complicated by failures at home. By June 6, 1944, the tide was turning. Operation Overlord, D-Day, was the largest amphibious invasion in human history. Imagine being a 19-year-old kid from Kansas or Brooklyn, packed into a metal landing craft, violently seasick, heading toward the beaches of Normandy. As the ramp dropped, many didn't even make it out of the water. The losses at Omaha Beach were catastrophic. But through sheer grit and overwhelming numbers, American forces, alongside their British and Canadian allies, broke through the Atlantic Wall. The push to Berlin had begun. But the Nazi regime wouldn't go quietly. In the freezing winter of 1944, Hitler launched a massive surprise counterattack, known as the Battle of the Bulge. American troops, freezing in the snow without winter gear, held the line. It was the deadliest battle for American forces in the entire war. By May 1945, Nazi Germany surrendered. But in the Pacific, the nightmare dragged on. Military planners warned that a ground invasion of the Japanese mainland could cost 1 million American casualties. So, America unleashed a secret it had been hiding in the desert of New Mexico: the atomic bomb. In August 1945, the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were wiped off the map. Over 200,000 people, mostly civilians, were vaporized, crushed, or died from radiation. It was a terrifying display of apocalyptic power, and it forced Japan's surrender. World War II was over. The cost was staggering. Over 400,000 Americans were dead. Globally, over 70 million lives were extinguished. When the dust settled, the world was fractured. The old European empires were shattered. Out of the ashes rose two new superpowers: the United States and the Soviet Union. America had entered the war as an isolationist nation, wanting to be left alone. It exited the war as the most powerful economic and military machine in human history, armed with a weapon that could destroy civilization itself. The sleeping giant had awoken, and the American century had begun. What do you think was the most pivotal moment for the U.S. during World War II? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that subscribe button for more history.